I'm sure it's been a very interesting journey from where you started
Yes.
and what you're doing now. We can kind of back into that, but I'm really curious. What's a typical day like for you at this company dealing with all these hours of television?
It's putting out fires all day long. I mean, as you can imagine, you have people in the field all over the world, really. And I mean, last year I think we had almost 700 people. Some of them were in the office, some of them were in the field, but you can imagine what it's like getting calls nonstop, putting fires out. This talent doesn't want to shoot, there's this problem going on, there's that. And so it's so exciting and it's fun because every day is completely different. You never know what you're going to walk into.
How did you get into this? I mean, where did you know one day you would grow up and be overseeing crazy people out in the wilderness?
I was always a fan of National Geographic, the magazine. I grew up with that yellow border, and I applied for an internship when I was in college, and then those internships were hard to come by. So anyway, I won this internship at Nat Geo TV before there was ever a channel, and it was, I was wide-eyed, and it was amazing. And back then, they did those blue chip, amazing, beautiful documentaries. That's where I got my start.
Why did they hire you as an intern? I mean, there's a lot of people here who probably are trying to get internships, or some who've succeeded.
Honestly, I think I was enthusiastic, and I think that's what it has to do with, starting early and just being passionate about what you do and willing to do anything, I think is just the best way to get into this industry.
I think that really has a lot to do with that kind of drive, because it's certainly a competitive industry. I mean, Peter, rolling back the clock a little, when you decided to focus on left field productions, this was a little bit before you joined, I believe.
Right.
What was it you saw? I mean, what was it you saw when you saw the first time you saw Pawn Stars? Did you know this was going to be this thing that launched? I mean, basically, this company worth hundreds of millions of dollars and licensing deals and all that. How did you?
So it had nothing to do with the show itself, which I hadn't seen, although I'd heard buzz on it. A friend of ours, Stephen Harris, who was at A&E, said, "You must meet Brent Montgomery. He's coming to this conference in Germany." And he was delayed by the biggest blizzard that hit eastern Germany since the era of Bach or something. There was about 4 feet of snow. All the traffic the airports were down. And this guy, Brent, who I'd never met before, texted me about every half an hour on his progress towards our meeting from Frankfurt Airport till we finally met. And then he just showed me just such respect for my time. He knew that I was at a really busy market. And then when I met him, he just had this incredibly open character. So it got down, what most impressed me about him was his character, his communication, his reach out, and then his affability and warmth, and then expertise when I met him. Then I saw the film, the pilot for Pawn Stars, and it was already on its way to be a hit then. So it was character, I think, that counted.
Interesting. The one thing I'm wondering too for you, Ashley, what's some sort of advice about what they're going to need to know about and the realities of the reality television business?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. The industry, even in the past few years, has changed so much, and it's always changing. And I think that you have to just be flexible and try new genres and be an expert in everything, really. I mean, that's just the way it is these days. I mean, who knows in 2 years? Maybe it won't be reality. Maybe it'll be something else. You have to be flexible.
Is it, I mean, what sort of, I mean, when you were a student, what did you focus on? Were you a film student? Were you a business major? Were you an English major? Did you think you were going to be pre-med? What were you doing?
I was an anthropology major. I was telling Peter earlier that my internship before National Geographic was at the Victoria and Albert Museum in London. I thought I wanted to be a museum curator. But I always loved documentaries. I always love to travel, and that's the thing. You don't have to major in television. You really, as long as you work hard and you're open to things, it's easy.
It's easy. I mean, Peter, too, you are a filmmaker, but you're also somebody who's been very intimately involved in the business of television.
Correct.
How did that happen?
Well, I guess I'd always been attracted to the quality end of the spectrum. I worked as a journalist, actually, in Indochina during the war as a very young man. And then I became a teacher in Australia. I was part of the 70s. I wanted to make the world a better place. And so I've always been attracted to the quality end of the spectrum. And I really believe that through documentary film, you can make those changes. You can make people see the world differently and understand characters in new ways. So it's all been a progression, I think, out of that core interest I have.
Ashley, you know, what I'm wondering too, and as people like think about this and maybe being involved in wanting to make films or be involved in the business of filmed entertainment or factual television, quite frankly, a lot of what Left Field does is clearly in that realm of entertainment.
Right.
You know, Real Housewives of Atlanta or of wherever they are this season.
In Jersey, yeah.
In Jersey, yes, thank you. It's not going to win you a Peabody or a Pulitzer. But you know, people find these shows incredibly entertaining. How do you balance all that, and and what are the realities of being involved in reality television for people who are interested?
It's funny you say that. I'm one of those people. I always say, you know, put me out in the middle of nowhere with. For example, I did a show called Hillbilly Hand Fishing. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but you know, you're out there catching giant catfish, swimming with poisonous snakes for 10 hours a day when it's 110 degrees. And no, certainly not winning any Emmys for that, but the experience. I mean, when would you ever get an experience like that with any other job? You wouldn't. And I think that's what makes it really the best job in the world. I mean, just meeting all sorts of people from different walks of life, and it's unbelievable. It really, I mean, it's the best job anyone can have, I think.
What's maybe the craziest situation you've ever found yourself in when you've been on location? Or
one of the craziest, I remember this was for Hoff Productions, actually. I was doing a show for National Geographic, and it was about this tribe of shark callers. So they would sing to the sharks. Literally, they rattle. They make these amazing rattles, and with a big shell, they sing and they rattle. It's unbelievable. You don't want me to do the song.
Okay.
But anyway, I show up, I'm by myself, and the fixer says, oh, by the way, the boat, we're not going by boat, we're now gonna drive. Well, no one had been on this road in probably 20 years, so it wasn't even a road really. And I mean, we traveled for probably about 18 hours through the middle of nowhere to get to this village, and then the guy drops me off with all the camera gear and everything, and he just leaves. That night there was a typhoon, and you know, I'm there with these ex-headhunters basically, and I stayed there for a week, you know, by myself. And I thought, is this guy ever going to come and pick me up? I have no idea. But it was such an incredible experience. And sure enough, we caught a few sharks and made a good show.
I guess part of that is, how do you know what's going to work and what's not going to work? The first step is knowing who your audience is.
Exactly.
But how do you know? How do you know something's got the goods?
I don't know if you know. And I mean, I think that's the thing. You know, that's what's amazing and why Brent's company is so successful. It's because, I mean, Pawn Stars was obviously a huge, huge hit. He built off that, did Counting Cars and American Restoration. But then he was able to, you know, he had those successful shows, and he was able to try different genres and different shows. And I think that's the way it happens. It's like you have to try different things. You don't know what's going to be a hit, really. I think everyone wants to think that they know what's going to be a hit. But really, you just have to try it.
Was there a time where you thought you had something and maybe you were, you had
All the time.
seen a production, you said, this is just gonna blow up, man. They've done a great job here, and then boom, it sinks like a stone.
I think as a producer, every show you do, you think is going to be a big hit. I mean, I've had series where I knew it was going to be the next big hit, and it's always so disappointing when it's not. But
I mean, I was thinking about that, and this is true with scripted television as well as with kind of the reality genre. What should people know about what's kind of the secret sauce or the ingredients that go into getting a good show made, finding the right platform and marketing it correctly? I'm sure, Peter, you can address this too as well.
Yeah, I was going to turn a question over to Ashley, and that is that in left field's programs, which are at the reality end of the spectrum, they're not content driven like your natural history, your Nat Geo docs, very much driven by the content. They're driven by the characters.
100%.
And it seems to me that, as anyone will tell you in retail, people are difficult.
Yes,
So
they are.
it would seem to me that your biggest challenge, given the fact that you have incredibly competent crews who brave, jungles and typhoons and so on, your biggest
Mean
challenge,
catfish.
And mean catfish.
your biggest challenge must be managing the talent itself.
You know what's interesting?
Finding it and then managing it.
Yeah, finding the talent. I mean, that's the biggest thing. And Left Field has a huge incredible casting department, and that's all they do.
How many people is that?
Gosh, at any given time, we have probably 15 or 20 people in casting, and all they're doing, they're just looking for characters. I
Where?
On the internet, they're reading articles, they're picking up the phone, calling people, they're doing Skype casting. So, all day long we have a room, and there's someone who just sits in there and they they do Skype interviews with people.
And what are they looking for? Someone who just
pops on camera, is interesting. I mean, it really is all about interesting people.
I question this too. I'm wondering if, for example, if I'm a student here in this wonderful program in New Schools, what's the skill set I need to work at Left Field? You talked about passion, but what's the skill set?
Honestly, hard work. I mean, I know you're saying skill set, but it's all about wanting it. I hire people all day long. Production assistants, and the ones that succeed are the ones that will do anything. They all have the same background, they all have the same skill set, but it's the ones that will do anything and want to work hard. They're the ones that succeed.
And what do you look for? I mean, there is that passion.
Yeah.
There's the willingness to work the long hours, to give it your all, to be game for just about anything. What are the other qualities you look at in people in terms of when you're hiring? As you say, you hire a lot of people.
I do hire a lot of people.
In
Yeah.
all sorts of roles.
Yeah, good with people, certainly. Good communicators, good storytellers. I mean, it's television, so if you're a good storyteller, that's a huge, huge skill, and it's all about communication. I feel like those are probably the top two things that we look for.
Peter, you made a really good point about this, is that how their programming is character driven, and we all know whether it's the next reality star or actor, talent's difficult. Mm-hmm. What's the skill set you need to deal with difficult people?
Talent, I mean, you're right. They're difficult to deal with a lot of the time, and it's back to that communication thing, just communicating with them and knowing that give and take. You have to make them happy. It's their show, really. But you also have to know what the network wants, what the production company wants. So it's just about communicating with them. At Left Field, we're lucky enough to have someone who is our head of talent relations. I mean, her job is unbelievable. That's all she does all day, is manage the talent.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Real Housewives in 20 different cities, right?
But
It's-
also, when the talent is engaged to work on a show, you must make it very clear what their responsibilities and limits are. Is that the case? I remember Brent told me that they have to sign a contract about that thick, and the reason why they have to sign a contract that thick is he has to sign one that thick with the network. And so going into the project, it's really clear to the talent where they sit in the echo chain.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that Brent is so smart with with that because, yeah, if your talent walks away, you don't have a show. So you have to make sure that they understand how important it is that they play along.
Do you see where kind of what's going to be the next big thing in reality? What's really going to where there's an opportunity in the marketplace?
I keep hearing scripted. People also are talking about blue chip documentaries coming back.
Where's the funding going to come from for if you want to do blue chip? Who's rolling the dice?
Who is? Peter.
It's a really tough time because the ratings for the audiences are diminishing. For most of the networks, particularly the networks that are focused on reality, year to year their ratings are declining.
The A&Es, the histories, the discoveries.
Discovery a little less so because they're focused on these working class ocusoaps and they've found themselves, maybe more than say A&E. So the network's audiences have peaked and have declined, and I think there is a saturation. There's a sameness across so many networks of the style and execution, and I'm not talking about left field here, but there's just a sameness about so much of the reality product, and so that's a really big factor. And secondly, Netflix subscription video on demand is draining people away from network viewing. So
isn't that an opportunity for a place like left field that you've got Netflix, Amazon Prime, you've got all these new platforms, you've got overseas, everybody's gone digital, there's all these networks all over the place. Yes, the audience is we really live in a narrowcast environment.
But people are watching actually more television every day.
Yeah.
It's just that they're not watching as much on cable and satellite and broadcast. The challenge exists for programmers right now. How do we fill our schedule, our 200 to 400 hours a year with fresh original programming that keeps our viewers loyal and keeps them from wandering off to Netflix and Amazon Prime and so on. That's the challenge.
Absolutely. And budgets are getting smaller and smaller. Orders are getting smaller and smaller. Timelines, because they have to fill slots, they'll say, hey, can you produce these 6 hours in the next 2 months? It happens all the time.
Wow, everybody's getting squeezed, right?
When you say orders are declining, what does that mean?
Where you'd get 26 episodes, now you're getting 6 episodes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's very hard to build a business without that level
The
of
volume.
predictability.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I'm sure we got lots of questions here.
Hi, Carol. I'm from NYU. Do you have open pitching sessions for any kind of reality TV ideas, or do you suggest people try to get involved with the networks for the demographic they think their show would fit?
Producers pitch to left field all the time, and we do deals with those producers. We're always looking for show ideas all the time. I mean, a lot of our shows come from producers, whether they're in-house or they're out-of-house.
You have an amplification there that the networks used to have big development teams, and they've cut back on their internal development teams and offshored that work to their favoured, preferred producers. So the producers are increasingly looking for partners to take pictures from. So if you can't get in the door at A&E, you look for the suppliers that create programs that are most compatible with your project.
Yeah, watch the credits at the end.
Hi, I'm Carolyn. I just want to know if there are ingredients to a pitch that you look for, if there's anything specific that you could share with us that wow you or don't or turn you off.
It's about finding good characters, putting them on camera, and pitching it. I mean, I don't know if there's any one thing we're looking for. If you have a good character, pitch it. It can't hurt. Again, you never know what's going to take off.
So, Ashley, when you do pitch with a character, do you need to have a $40,000 sizzle tape? You know, take the character to Hawaii to show them in a beautiful sunlight?
Absolutely not. No, I mean, oftentimes we're pitching talent via a Skype interview. It looks terrible, but as long as you can get an idea and a taste for what they're going to be like on camera, it can just be a simple interview.
A question over here.
Hi, my name is Vicky Salemi. I am an independent producer, finding talent, signing talent agreements, and I've never sold a show yet. So I'm finding, my question is, how do you break in and get your foot in the door to have those pitch meetings, let's say with Left Field, when you have talent signed? Because I'm finding a lot of the companies are saying, oh, well, you haven't done a show yet, you know, and I don't have an agent, and they're saying, just talk to your agent. I'm like, I don't have one yet because I haven't done a show yet. So how do you get those meetings to say, here's my talent, I have sizzle reel, I have them signed, we're ready, here's the treatment?
I would say that, have you produced shows outside of, you know, there are people who just do development, and then there are people who produce and they do development. The best way, I mean, I think, work on a show that you can say, hey, look, I did this, and it'll open up doors for you. And to get an agent, well.
Yeah, how do you get an agent?
How do you get an agent? You just have to, the same way you would pitch a show to someone, you would pitch your resume to an agent. You know, in the big agencies, there's ICM, there's WME, CAA. Yeah, just look them up. Again, they all have reality divisions, and they're always looking for talent.
And there are lots of smaller agencies that are still very well connected, like Beanstalk here in New York.
Yep.
And I always think that my recommendation is always to get out of Dodge, to go to a conference out of your home city, or go to some event where you are separated from the job-seeking herd, and have a chance to establish a relationship with someone over a cup of coffee or a pizza or whatever it is. So, you know, find conferences or events that you can attend, and often even out of the country.
Mm-hmm.
You know, go to something in one of the big international markets or technical fairs.
Even hang out at Real Screen. I mean, for all those asking questions about pitching, Real Screen is an amazing opportunity to pitch. It's not free, it's not cheap, but it's worth it. I have tons of friends who have sold shows at Real Screen.
We're getting pretty close to wrapping up here, but before we do, what is perhaps the best piece of advice? We'll start with you, Peter.
Just above all, be optimistic and get involved. You know, just the fact that everybody's here tonight, you've advanced so much in your thinking versus if you stayed home and stayed on Facebook all night. So get involved. And then my third motto, and it's why my newsletter, coming back to that, is free. Give before you get. Don't wait. Don't wait to be properly, you know, paid and recognized. You've got to, in this environment now, you've got to give. You've got to be very optimistic, and then, you know, the benefits will flow after that. I
have the exact same advice.
No,
no, it is. It's exactly what he said.
She told me to say that.
No, but get in early. I mean, you know, you guys are all young. Get in there. Take an entry-level job. Even if you think you have the best show in the world to pitch, get in there, take an entry-level job, and then once you get to know people and you have contacts and whatever, that's really going to be the best way to pitch it once you're already at a company. I mean, I had someone, and I keep bringing up hillbilly hand fishing, I don't know why, but, you know, I had someone whose job was to be the snake spotter. A lot of people would say, yeah, no thanks. That person's now a producer. You know, it's just, that's an extreme example. But you know, a lot of people don't, you know, they may feel like something's beneath them. Nothing's beneath you. You know, I mean, it's not. I mean, I would get coffee for people all day long when I was an intern. You know, and you learn from that. Not from getting coffee, obviously, but, you know, you learn from just being open to doing all sorts of things, whether it's saying, hey, you know what, I'm going to work a couple extra hours, but can you show me how to write a script? Can you show me how to, you know, it's being open to, to learning things that you may not even think you're interested in, but just trying it.
Yeah, there's a scale thing going on here that we ought to remember, and that is like Discovery spend $1.5 billion on original programming a year. A&E spend probably $1.25 billion, and then Scripps below that. That's a massive amount of programming requiring an incredible lot of jobs and tremendous fluidity. So even though it's hard to get in, you know, I really love your message. You know, spot the snakes, that's fine, because something will come out of that. You know?
It's true, it's true. Another piece of advice, be nice to everyone. I always say you never know. I was an intern with a bunch of other people. One is now head of a network. I mean, it's these people that you're working with are always going to be your friends, and everyone takes, you know, different directions, different jobs. But it's one of those industries where it really is helpful to make connections, keep those connections. It's all about networking.
Remember birthdays.
Remember birthdays.
All right, well, so to recap, be passionate, recognize good storytelling, work your butt off, and be game for just about anything.
Absolutely.
All right, well, listen, thank you both so much.
Thank you.